Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on October 23rd, 2021 at approximately 5:44 p.m. PST. I had a remarkable occurrence today. I was out at the park, the same one that I was at that I was getting in that people were telling me just about a month ago. Because of the fact I'm not vaccinated, that I needed to stay 10 feet away from them outside, right? And, at that point, I reached a point where it's like, please just leave me alone, just don't bug me. Right. So I stopped going to the park, I stayed home. Well, a couple of days ago, maybe a week, I started going out for my walk again. Shouldn't have stopped in the first place, in all fairness. But I went out today and I noticed something that I really hadn't seen. It was just a matter of time. I happened to go out to the same park I've been going to for the last couple of years, and ran into a group of people. They were practicing Aikido. I saw them practicing, so I walked over to the bunch, and the person putting on the course. I don't honestly know if they were training, if it was a paid course or what have you. But I was talking to them, and the woman looked at me and she invited me to join their little group. Well, I was a little pressed for time today, so I turned it down. But the important factor was this: she pointed to the group, and she looks at me and she goes, "I don't care if you're vaccinated or not, but if you're not vaccinated, we are asking the people wear a mask." And then she pointed to a couple of people and she goes, "Those two are not vaccinated." The one she points to the one guy and she goes, "He's been double vaccinated." But in solidarity to the group that to follow in line, he put the mask on. Okay. Now the reality from my standpoint is simple. A mask is a mask is a mask. Whatever. Okay. But it did make something very, very important. It made a very big point from my standpoint. There was no question as to whether it was right, wrong, or indifferent, which way the whole thing went. But it did show that people are starting to wake up and go, look, a lot of people, there's two ways of looking at this. Now, for me, where it come to the vaccine, it was real simple. I don't have it. I don't get the flu vaccine. I don't get ill. And yeah, I realize there's that argument that, well, if you go around other people, they can get it from you, so you're trying to protect them. I'm like, yeah, if I went around other people, I'm reclusive. Okay, I've just opened another door. I finally started ordering food online, which means I don't even have to go to the grocery store much anymore, which may not be a good thing. I don't know. I'm still working on that. But am I content with the way my life is going? Frankly, yes. The important thing that I wanted to point out, though, was this: people are starting to realize that the world that we're living in, the only way that we're going to get through this is if we work together. If we all work together, we can make this a better world for virtually all people. Okay. And I mentioned it before. House fires, forest fires, rainstorms. The weather doesn't care. The weather really doesn't care what your health is. It doesn't care what your pocketbook looks like. It doesn't care who you worship. Okay. And it certainly doesn't care what you've been vaccinated for or what vitamins you're taking. Doesn't care what your exercise routine is. If it rains and you're outside, you're going to get wet. Okay. So when we look at the way the world is, we have to look, first of all, in our own home. Now, half the reason I don't have a lot of trouble outside, and a lot of the reason I don't go outside, in all fairness, which may well be why I don't have a lot of trouble out there now, is because I'm getting more and more content, more and more comfortable in my own home. And that has to do with the fact that I'm getting to understand my own body and how it's reacting, as well as clearing the junk and the collateral, the clutter out of my own house. As you can see, if you look behind me here, as you can see, a lot of the stuff is going away. Okay, and it is getting better. The more you take, when you take a look at your life, and you go, this is what I'm looking at, this is where my life is, and what I'm not content with. When you start changing the things that you're not content with to things that you are content with, okay, that's when the world starts to change. And I'm looking at this post over here, just on my right here, where I've got my other video. Okay, up until recently, this has always been, here's the protest for these people, here's the protest for that thing. Now what I'm showing, I'm looking at this one picture, and it's got two people standing here hugging each other. Well, standing side by side, with their arms around each other. And the one's wearing a shirt that says vaccine, or vaccinate, and the other one says non-vaccinate. Meaning, these two are standing right side by side. I have no idea if they're wearing a mask, in all fairness, because I'm looking at the back of them. But what they're showing, and then of course it's got a heart around the two of them. Okay, but what it is showing is that they're looking at it, and like I brought up the other day, okay, brought up this issue that this one lady had posted, and she was obviously poking fun, where she said she had severe allergies. And because of that, she said she was really unhappy. Up until all this went sideways, she'd use her Claritin and it worked great. But now, because she's not using her Claritin, because she's using her Claritin and nobody else around her is, it's not working anymore. If you focus on your own health, okay, I've long held the reason I don't get the flu and the reason I don't get colds, or virtually anything else. Okay, and well, I should say pretty much anything else. I mean, heart attack, stroke, certainly. But as far as illnesses go, I've held for decades. I don't get ill because I don't see the point to it. Okay, they're inconvenient. I mean, I don't know about you, but I do know that most people that suffer from the cold, you get things like, you get a runny nose, you get minor headaches, dry eyes, this sort of thing, whatever. Okay, it's very uncomfortable, but you deal with it, and away you go. For me, I don't even get those. But understand, I've become very reclusive. But I am watching the changes that are happening, and I strongly encourage you. Okay, I only follow 3 laws. Okay, and I came back to this lifetime for one purpose. Okay, this particular lifetime, I came back to remind you that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Okay, doesn't matter how you got to where you are. Okay, I keep reminders for myself around. Like, if you look over here, I've got the I am worth it sign. And over here, I have legally attained a minimum of $2,500 by October 31st, 2021. Now, at this point, I have no doubt I'll make that for one reason. Okay, I'm already at, roughly speaking, I've still got 2 more checks coming in that I'm aware of before the end of the month. But I'm already at, I think, about 1,500 of that. So I'll be pretty close, but I'll figure it out. Now, you take care of the energy in your own body. And like I mentioned, I'm just going to mention this briefly. Take your hands. Now, it's funny when you think about it. Most people, let me show you something. If you look at Christians, you watch them and they put their hands together. Okay. Now, if you take your hands like this and you separate them and you feel that energy, focus for just a minute, you'll feel an energy between your hands. You separate them just that little bit and you can feel the energy. And you focus on that thought, one thought, heal. Energy runs both directions at the same time. So if you take a look at that, if you hold your hands this way, you can feel it. Now, the reality is energy does not require physical contact. Okay, but if you take a look at the energy work, now get this. Energy itself travels. But if you take your hands that far, you can feel it. If you put your hands together in the way of folded hands, now I'm sure many of you recognize this. Okay, you put your hands together and you focus. People put their hands together to pray, and they ask God for help. They ask them to heal him, etc., etc. Concentrate. Put your hands together, and you're focusing on the word heal. Put your hands right together in the way of putting your hands together in this fashion, and you still thank God, thank your guides, whatever, for healing you. You're focusing on the word heal to get that energy to kick your body back into gear. Now, there's another religion that we look at where people are constantly putting their head on the ground, okay, and putting their two hands palm down on the ground. Now, I don't know that religion. I know of it. I don't know which one it is, and no offense to anybody. But think of it. If you're putting your hands down and you're doing your prayers and you're dedicating yourself to whatever, okay, you're tapping directly into Itza, what I call Itza. You would have called her Gaia, Mother Earth, whatever. Okay, I don't know the entire ins and outs and the number of varieties, but you put your hands on the ground and you're connecting that energy. And like I said, energy runs both directions. Well, needless to say, the energy in the planet itself has one great big energy field. If you're putting both hands on different points and you're focusing on the word heal, forgive, peace, whatever brings you into a calm state. You put your hands on the ground. Not only are you making that connection, that loop towards the other entity, okay, but you're also grounding yourself. By grounding yourself, you'll find the energy around you runs more smoothly. And again, this is why I tell people we are all connected. Okay, that's just the simplicity of it. Okay, and when you start treating yourself the way you desire to, that you can we try English? When you start treating yourself in a positive fashion, you minimize the negative, you maximize the positive, you'll find the energy in you and your own energy levels start to climb really nicely. But the three karmic laws you pay attention to, the only three that I ever focus on: be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Energy out, energy in. Okay. Now, as that happens and you get the energy floated around, you'll notice, regardless of who the people are, and again, there's this other part with another religion, another spiritual group, where you hold hands. We used to do it around the dinner table, and now nobody does. And people wonder why the energy around the family unit collapsed. When you hold hands, you're exchanging energy. And you're focusing on, when you're focusing on prayer, when you're focusing on goodwill between people, okay, and you're holding hands, again, the energy passes from one hand to another, through the person's body, through that hand to the next hand in line, and it completes the circle. Now, you'll notice when you do that, your feet are still usually on the floor, because not only is it traveling through the people, but it's also traveling through the earth. Again, we are all connected. And when people start, as it's starting to show up, and I am really happy to see this, okay, it's amazing, I've been watching the world for a long time, 58 years to be roughly accurate. I'm off by a number of days and minutes and what have you. But I'm noticing, especially recently, people are starting to reach out to each other. Instead of seeing all these riots and all these who shot who and who's invading what, you're starting to see people turning around and reaching out to each other. Okay, and yes, this thought was triggered by the fact that instead of getting told, I need to stay away from people, which, like, I really needed to be told that much. I've been staying away from people for years. But people are starting to reach out and say, hey, it's time we start working together. It's time we look past the fear. It's time we look at the support of each other. Okay, yes, there are illnesses out there. There are rough things going on. Good people do get hurt. Bad people seem to get away with a lot. And I'm not going into that right now. But as a spiritual guide, okay, and I know there's a lot of people claiming spirituality, claiming to be of a higher mindset, and yet these same people are exuding incredible amounts of prejudice. And yeah, I definitely point my finger at many of the mainstream religions on this one, because I see so many of them say, love God, etc., etc., and, God loves all children, but you'll notice, God loves all people, except the ones that a given church doesn't agree with, apparently. But do understand, it says, the saying is, God loves everyone. It does not say that a given church or a given religion loves everyone. Like, I was talking to somebody the other day, and it is absolutely amazing. They follow a worship line that says God loves everyone, and everybody is equal in God's eyes. And yet these people are literally ostracizing members of their own church because of the fact they don't do exactly what the church says. Not what the people, and not what God says, but what the church does. Okay, now understand, that is a good point if you happen to be, like, where it comes to parents. Remember this issue of do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Well, there is a small point that gets added to that. And that is, you must follow the laws of the land in which you are. Now, if you're the parents, if you're paying the rent, or if you're paying the mortgage, anybody whose name is not on the lease is living under your rules. Okay, you're the one that makes the rules and laws. Just make certain that you're making rules and laws that are equal, that they do apply to everyone. Okay. Now, I'm seeing it more and more. And yes, I know a lot of people have a lot of bad things to say about Facebook. People have bad things to say about everything. Okay. Now, I was really content today. Okay, I managed to get rid of another couple of boxes. And by the way, I am now up to... I was at 62. What am I at? 64 now, I think? No, not that. That one. I am now up to 65 books that I have finished reading. I finished off that encyclopedia I was looking at. And it's gone now. Okay, I finished reading that one off. So I have that's the second set of encyclopedias I've actually read cover to cover. Okay, I don't know what the next book is I'm going to be adding. I do know I'm still working on the Bible, but considering the fact I'm only on Deuteronomy, that's going to be a few years down the road. And again, my father asked me, he didn't ask me on his deathbed, but he did ask me just before dying if I had ever managed to read the entire Bible. So that is one of these little goals that I've got for myself. And it's going to take me some time to do it, to read it. Okay. But pick a goal that you pick something in your own life you're not content with. For me, it's obvious. Okay. I've decided that all of this mess is being sorted out. So it's going. Okay, and you'll notice down on the third shelf here, I've got a bunch of books down here. Those are little projects I've been working on. They're just another project I've been working on, but it's getting organized. Okay, same as the stuff over here is getting moved out of the way. Pick a goal pick something in your life you're not content with. Far easier to pick that than it is to pick something that you may be happy with 10 years down the road. Now, I'm going to bring you full circle here, because I've been talking about looking for some sort of martial arts training, some sort of physical activity that I could do, because, well, let's face it, I can't exactly run the marathon on my legs. But when I told this woman, when I first mentioned I ran into this group learning Aikido, I mentioned my problem is I've actually got a very bad leg. And her comment was, no problem, that's why we teach Aikido. She goes, if you've got a bad leg, going hand to hand is just a bad idea. Because she goes, somebody can take your leg out in a heartbeat. Right. So I'm thinking I will probably look into it a whole lot more seriously, but they only come by every Saturday. So I will take a look at that and see what happens. The reality is I'm still living by what I feel for me. So when she made the comment, it was real simple. For us, if you're vaccinated, no problem. Come on in. If you're not vaccinated, we ask that you wear a mask. Period. That was the only thing they asked. Okay, and I'm thinking, well, I don't have a problem wearing a mask anywhere else. Why should I worry about that? Okay, I've also been looking at the issue. I've always liked the quarterstaff. Okay, or the bow stick or the joe stick. I don't know what the actual term is. That's something I'll find out. But I am not ignoring the fact I've got a bad leg. The reality is, most of the time I carry a cane with me. So we'll find out how that goes next week. But they get there about 8:30. I'll probably be there quarter after 8-ish. Right. Simply because of the fact I'm looking at it for me to get my health working right. When I woke up this morning, I discovered a neat little thing. I was a little dizzy and I'm going like, okay, that's not good. So let's check blood pressure. Found out my blood pressure was just perfect. That was the starting point. And I looked at that and went, well, I'm still feeling a little off kilter. So what causes it? One of the biggest causes of dizziness, turns out, could have been dehydration. So what I do, I went and got some water, got some water into me pretty quick. Right. And in very short order, I was no longer dizzy. So I'm thinking I am paying more attention to my health, more than I ever had, which is where this whole issue of a stroke 2 years ago came in handy. But I'm finding I'm paying more and more attention to what the different religions are doing. Okay. And the people that are coming and saying, oh, I came from a long time ago and, I'm here to lead you on a better path. I'm telling you, whether people follow me or not is not the issue. Although, if you do like the videos, absolutely subscribe to my channel. Give us a thumbs up. And don't forget to hit that alert button to let you know when the next one comes up. Because it's not a question of whether you're following me. It's a question of whether or not you're content with your life. If you're content with your life, then carry on. But if there's anything in your life you're not content with, the tools I'm offering are the same ones I personally use. The philosophies I talk about are the ones I personally live by. And by the way, no, when I talk to people, like a few years back, I was down at the skateboard park near where I live. And there was fighting all the time going on. Okay. Now, the funny part about it is I'm over there and somebody got hurt. It happens at a skateboard park. But when I did it, it was about 10 years ago when this happened. And I sat down, and this kid hurt himself, and people were scrambling. Cell phones were not a big thing 10 years ago, and especially not amongst kids at the skateboard park. Well, this guy hurt him. He fell, and he hurt himself pretty badly. He was cutting his leg was bleeding pretty bad. Now, understand, I am not medically trained. However, I do know how energy works. So I walked over to there was a crowd there, and I come over to the guys. I looked at him, and I says, here, let me take a look at that for a minute. I says, I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to touch him. I'm not going to physically touch him at all. Right, but I said, I've got an idea here. And I took my hand, okay, and his leg was cut pretty bad up here. And all I did, his leg was cut pretty bad up here. And all I did was I took my hand and held it about that far above. Now, some of you know what that is. But I held my hand about that far above and I focused for a few minutes and just left it there. And they're going, well, what are you doing? We got to get it cleaned up. It's bleeding. And why did it stop bleeding? I looked at them and I went, well, because energy can heal things faster than most people realize. And I just happen to manipulate energy. I redirect it and remind your body how to heal faster. Well, this led to a lot of conversations with people around the skateboard park. And about 6 months after I had done that, I was sitting on the hill at the edge of the park, and I was talking to a few of the kids, and extra ones had come. Well, I'll tell you, I'm sitting there on this little hillock, and I've got somewhere around 40 or 50 people all sitting in a circle around me. Okay, I was sitting on top of the mountain, all sitting in a circle around me, and I'm sitting there going, this is feeling way too familiar. But there were 40, maybe 50 people sitting on this hill, sitting around me on this hillock. And we were just talking, I was just talking, they were just listening. I was telling them things along the same lines as I'm telling you now. Okay. Now, the reality of it is, for me, that was kind of a remarkable feeling. I'm talking to you guys now, and I do not have that big of a following at this point. Okay. One day I may. I don't know. I mean, I don't watch them, but I hear about these evangelical preachers on YouTube, or I see these video YouTubers, right? And I'm watching this go on, and they're looking at hundreds of thousands and millions of viewers. The reality is for me, it's not a question of whether a whole pile of people put me on a pedestal, but I talked about that before. But the reality behind it, from my standpoint, is that we're looking at a whole lot of changes taking place. And I'm really happy to see the changes that are taking place right now. In case you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm actually just looking at my own account right now to see where I'm standing. And right about now, that's why. Yes, this is, by the way, a live recording, meaning when I do the recording, I get finished, I double check to make sure I got the date right, and then I put the thing, I post it. Well, right now I've got a whopping 162 followers, subscribers, which is fantastic. Now, I look at it this way. Okay, I'm talking about just be nice to each other, work with each other, and help each other as best you can. This does not mean if you're a millionaire, you have to give millions of dollars away. Okay, I go by a very simple philosophy. Okay, I know what it costs me to work, and this is just my own perspective. Okay, I do agree with the idea of giving to charities, of tithing. If you want, call it tithing, call it charity work, whatever. But much like I don't give money to the church, I also don't give money to registered charities. Although I do agree with their philosophy. So what I've done is to make sure that everything works right. And remember, take care of yourself first, so you don't put yourself into a state where you require help. Now, that $2,500 I was talking about, that $25 is what I require to make sure my house runs safely. So what I have simply decided is, after that $25, I will take care of it. Okay. And then I'm using that as a break point. Once I've got that, then 10% everything I make over that, and I will be donating, which means to me, I will take 10% of whatever I make over that. Okay. And I will use that to help somebody with their groceries, to pay for somebody's meal, to give somebody a hand up. That's just me. That way, 100% of what I donate, okay, goes to the person I'm donating it to. And that's just the way it's going to go. But that is my philosophy. Now, where it comes to the money I'm generating, especially the money through books, I'm going back through it. I've already started going back through it to take a look at my records. so that I can deal with the advertising side of it. And here's the thing I was referring to about working with each other. Every industry has, finder, like most industries have finder fees, they have tips, they have referral bonuses and what have you. I figured out how to track word of mouth advertising, which is, from my understanding, bar none, the number one way of advertising. Okay, this is not something I'm selling. The method is not something I'm selling. It is simply something I use for my own purposes. But I figured out how to track it, and I figured out how to implement it. Okay, but when we talk about this whole issue of, if you're going to claim you're doing something, be absolutely certain you claim and that you follow through with what you claim. Because the only thing in existence that you actually own, the only thing that nobody can take away from you, is your word. Okay, I think that answers my question. I'm just making a note for myself here. Because it's time I start getting on track again. I got on track for a couple of weeks and then dropped the ball. I'm not perfect. But tomorrow, we're going to focus wholeheartedly on this idea of just exactly what is contained in the power of your word. Okay. And, whoa, did we ever go over? Okay, well, this is a longer one, but that said, I'm going to bring this to a close right now. I will be back again tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.